Hey, everybody. Welcome to SF Doc Fest. We're really excited to have you here. Obviously, it's been kind of a weird year, and so we're still in this kind of weird virtual and hybrid kind of film festival format, but we've saw a lot of great films from around the world. And luckily enough, today we have the team behind the film guilas that we just saw. So thanks again for being here. Can you both introduce yourself and your roles, and we'll get this party started?
Sure. Thank you so much. Really happy to be here, even virtually so. My name's Christy Guevara Flanagan, and I'm the director of the short Aguilas.
Hi, everybody. Pleasure to be here. My name is Maite Zubiaure, and I'm the co-director of the short film Aguilas.
Nice. It's a really kind of thought-provoking and beautiful film. And I guess a good place to start is how did you kind of discover this story and realize there was kind of a larger documentary film you wanted to create?
I'll toss it to Maite because it was really her involvement with the organization Águilas del Desierto that helped birth the idea for the documentary itself.
Yeah, so this is actually part of a bigger endeavor that it's an interdisciplinary scholarly endeavor that it's called Forensic Empathy. So we started with a scholarly monograph, but at the moment we saw the urgency of the matter, we thought that we needed another medium that reaches out to a bigger audience. And that's why we came up with making a documentary. I joined Águilas del Desierto in 2016. So I was so impressed and so taken by the heroic altruism of this particular search and rescue group that Christy and I decided that it would make a lot of sense to raise awareness about migrant death and the humanitarian crisis at the border, to do a short documentary that tells one such search and rescue weekend by Águilas del Desierto.
And so this is the first time I've heard the kind of phrase forensic empathy. Can you tell a little bit more behind the kind of philosophy there and how that kind of was integrated into the aesthetic and approach that you all took to making the film?
Yeah. Chrissy will have a lot to say about the aesthetics that we were pursuing for the documentary. But going back to the term forensic empathy, we hear a lot of bad things about the border, but there's one side that is very, very uplifting, which is this dense and very active network of empathy and so many people actually helping migrants. And it is forensic empathy because much of it is related to migrant death and the efforts to identify the victims. So the medical officer, the office of the medical examiner in Tucson is a state-of-the-art example of forensic personnel bending over backwards to try to identify the victims and bring some peace back to the families. And in that sense, they closely collaborate with other humanitarian groups in the Tucson sector. So that's why we are very keen on highlighting the term forensic empathy and all these humanitarian collaborations at the border.
And so,
I would just add that in terms of how it informed the aesthetics of the film, we were really interested in not sensationalizing the issue or the death or the tragedy there, to show it realistically, of course, but to also offer audiences an opportunity to really reflect on the experiences of migrants and the risks that they take to cross and the real visceral dangers that they experience and can experience when they cross, and also to show this Latino organization that is different from maybe other humanitarian types of organizations that we might be used to seeing, and showing how there's a great compassion and legacy as well of working on the effort to unite and recover those that have died in the crossing.
I think that kind of raises an important question. I mean, one of the kind of challenges often documentary filmmakers deal with is this idea of like, how much of the kind of issue or subject matter do you have to kind of school or kind of inform the audience with versus also just kind of, having them immersed within the story and kind of meeting the characters. And so, as you were kind of starting to begin this constructing the story, how much of a kind of a background did you feel like you needed to give on the situation and the organization? And at what point in time did you just kind of decide to kind of embrace, these kind of these kind of rescuers, these kind of searchers stories, I guess, in some way, or kind of immerse yourself in the moment?
It was really,
Go ahead, Christy.
I would say that it was really hard to strike that balance, and it was something we were aware of the whole time, that we wanted to show the kind of group dynamics of the Aguilas and their hearts and their passion and their efforts, and provide some context about the border that people may not be aware of, and some of the real numbers there. There's so much that we could have gone into about the history and when policy changes really began to have this dramatic of an effect in this region. But we also wanted people to just feel something for the migrants as well. So to have an experience that was literally walking in their footsteps. And so because it's a short, I think we felt like we could find a balance between all those considerations, but it was very difficult.
Yeah, just to reiterate exactly that. So the balance between offering a lot of information and then sort of sacrificing the atmosphere. The idea of the short documentary is not as much offering answers, but having the audience pose themselves many questions and igniting their interest. So we got some feedback about, but you should explain this a little bit more. Well, this is all readily available information, and what we want is, again, to have many questions, people asking themselves many questions. So we were very happy to see that there were so many questions, because then in some ways we reached what we wanted to do. Yeah.
Well, I think it makes a much more powerful film, and as an avid documentary watcher, I commend you in deciding to embrace it, because it is very challenging when you get these questions sometimes of feeling that you need to kind of answer them. But obviously, as a film viewer, it's like you want to just kind of like people to kind of get emotionally carried away in the story. What was your collaborative relationship like, and how did that kind of develop, and how did you kind of approach things in the sense of working together? Because often we kind of think as filmmakers often working by themselves, out there in the field. And so how did that kind of collaborative relationship work?
I think it has been sheer pleasure from the get-go. Everybody should know and knows that Christy Guevara is the seasoned documentary director, and I'm not a filmmaker, really. What I am is a humanist, and as a humanist, I do know how to tell stories. And I think in that sense, the collaboration was actually absolutely wonderful. Working together with our editor, Nico Sandy, that was, for me, it was an absolute blast, because I learned so much about putting together a visual story. And the whole collaborative effort was also very, very rewarding. The fact also that Christy and I come from academia, we were both professors, so that we had a common point of departure there already. Christy, would you like to add something?
Yeah, it was, we were a super small team as well. Maite and myself and one camera person who was a UCLA theater of film student, school of film student, come with us. So it was really the three of us on our first shoot, and maybe we added one more person for the second shoot. And it was very intimate the whole time, our collaboration. And Maite's really close with the Aguilas, and I feel very close with them as well now, having gone through this experience and learned more about them and shared the work with them. And so it's been very, very lovely and very tight knit. And I think for that reason, just a powerful relationship.
Yeah,
I think that intimacy
sorry, I
comes
just wanted
through.
to add very quickly that it wasn't, what was not easy, of course, is the subject. So we were always very, very aware of the fact that we were dealing with migrant death, somber, tragic reality that is happening at our border. And that in some ways was also helped us to do a strong empathetic work and collaboration.
Yeah, and maybe a question to follow up there would be, so when dealing with such a difficult subject and where there are different surprises that can happen, like how do you self as filmmakers kind of like not necessarily steal yourself, but allow yourself to kind of like capture the story, but also let yourself feel the way that you might be feeling when you know um, you're hearing about these kind of difficult situations?
Well, I think there's no denying the gravity when I was there to film it right away. You're looking for a specific person. This is their story. Everybody's very focused and serious and very committed to trying to help this family recover and to help piece the story of any lost migrant that they find there. And only one of the searches that I went on yielded actual remains, and they were it was incredibly powerful and sobering. And so for that, when we did so, and it was the 3 human skulls that we found. And so for that reason, we really wanted to take the same care with the construction of the film around that. And we worked, really, really hard just on these series of shots to find the right length, to find the right, image to come before and after. And, that was probably one of the last editing decisions we made, was just trying to get that exactly right.
I do have to add that I think for me, and I think for Christy, I can speak for Christy as well, the sober dignity of Águilas del Desierto was utterly inspiring. And since I joined them, it taught me how to react with that terrible situation of stumbling over skulls on national territory. I mean, it's absolutely uncanny and horrifying. And I think our documentary wanted precisely to also portray, as I call it, the sober dignity of Águilas del Desierto when facing migrant death.
Mm. Well, kind of as we wrap things up, I mean, it's so great that this film's getting out in the world in some big and powerful ways. As people kind of run across the film, what's the kind of catalyst for either change or kind of thoughts that you want viewers to kind of think about after the film's done? Just personally.
Well, many people, especially in other, outside of the West or the Southwest, who've seen the film in the US haven't known really that this happens. And so just to tell people about the story of this, and then to have them learn more about policies and be aware of how our governmental policies are creating this really dangerous way of crossing, and that we hope people will understand better why there needs to be a path towards legalization that is more viable than having people attempting to cross in this way.
Yeah, I do think that our goal is actually to raise awareness and with a sense of urgency, this is actually happening, and ultimately affect policy changes. In regards of making this problem aware, not only in the United States, but worldwide, and also in Mexico and Central America. I've been giving talks about migrant death and forensic empathy on both sides of the border, and the ignorance about the subject is generalized on both sides.
Yeah, and I would like to think that I'm a fairly well-informed person, but even just being able to experience it through this kind of cinematic film definitely kind of stirred different emotions in my mind that I think probably I hadn't felt in a while. I mean, I like to think of myself as an empathetic person. So just thanks again for making a great film and being part of the festival.
Thank you so much. Our pleasure, certainly.
Thank you.
Well, good luck with everything and have a great day, guys.